Welcome everyone to this meeting of Development Control A Committee. Welcome to members of the public, councillors, officers, anyone who's watching at home on YouTube. To kick things off, I'll do the safety information now. So basically, if there's a loud fire alarm, which we're not expecting, just go out the main doors of City Hall, turn right, and we congregate by the cathedral. Let's do our introductions first. So I'm Councillor Rob Breyer, I'm the chair of the committee, and we'll just go around this way.
I'm Lauren Price, and I'm a Democratic Services Officer.
Ellie Freeman, Councillor for Bedminster.
George Calashone, Councillor for Clifton Down.
Serena Ralston, Councillor Clifton Down.
Councillor Sarah Classic, Hengrove and Whitchurch Park.
Councillor Darrella Grabby from Vale.
Councillor Fabian Burkle, St George Troopers Hill.
Don Alexander, Avonmouth and Lawrence Weston.
Owen Jones, Bristol City Council Development Management Officer.
I'm Jonathan Diamond from Development Management.
Thanks very much. Lauren, do we have any apologies for absence and substitutions?
Might switch on. Yes, we do, Chair. We have 3. We have an apology from Councillor Eddy, and he will be substituted apparently by Councillor Udin. We have apologies from Councillor Zoe Peat, and she is being substituted by Councillor Donald Alexander. And we have a apology from, my brain has just forgotten who it was, from Katja Hodgson, who is the Vice Chair, and she is being substituted by Fabian Breckles.
Thank you very much. Welcome all the newcomers, or as it were. Declarations of interest is item 3. Does anyone have any interest relevant to the consideration of items on the agenda? Seeing shakes of heads, so we'll move on. Agenda item 4 is minutes of the previous meeting. This is to agree the minutes of the last meeting is a correct record. Has anyone got any comments on the minutes? Or am I okay to sign them as a correct record? I'm seeing nods, so I will just sign those quickly now. There we go, that's all done. Agenda item 5 is action sheet. So we did have something on the action sheet this time, which was to do with noise, wasn't it? Would you be able to just give a quick summary of where we came to on that?
Oh yeah, thank you, Chair. At the last meeting on the 4th of March, there was a question which was raised by a member in relation to noise, and there was an action on the action sheet for a briefing note to be sent, which was sent to all members of the committee, and also copied to members of the DCB committee as well. I provided a summary of the note on the action sheet. However, the email which was sent round really goes into more detail just regarding the assessment of noise issues and the consideration of noise complaints. I think just a key thing to note, which may be useful for members' information, is that when we are assessing an application as officers, and we essentially would like advice from our consultee with regard to noise issues, they are able to view the neighbourhood enforcement team's complaint system, so they are able to take this into account in informing a view and providing us with their comments. So they may potentially look at that in addition to sort of considering the content of any representations from neighbours on an application as well. Yes, I hope that's a summary.
Thanks very much. Has anyone got anything further they want to add on that point? Or anything, any questions or anything like that? No? Okay. Thank you very much, Jonathan. That's helpful. Next on the agenda is agenda item 6, which is appeals. So this is to note appeals lodged, imminent public inquiries, and appeals waiting decision. Anyone got anything they'd like to raise from appeals this time? Or anything you'd like to raise? Don't worry if there's not. No? Okay. Is there something
There was one that I was just going to flag just because it may be of interest, which is it's item 69 in the list of decisions received. which relates to the Keynsham Garden Centre in Brislington West. This was an appeal against the non-determination of an outline application for a major development for commercial uses. And this appeal was heard by way of an inquiry that sat for 4 days in February. There were a number of issues really which were considered in the appeal, and it's actually quite a lengthy decision. But there were two really key issues of note that I just wanted to raise, and those were with respect to the Greenbelt and also highway and transport impacts as well. And this was particularly interesting because the new concept of the grey belt was engaged, which was introduced through the new revised MPPF, which came in at the end of last year. In essence, the inspector considered that the land would have been a grey belt. However, the appeal was dismissed because it wasn't considered that the site was in a sustainable location, and there were concerns just regarding highway and transport impacts. So yeah, that one's well worth a read, really.
Okay. Weekend reading for everyone, or holiday reading. Yes. Oh, Serena, you've got your hand up. Go on. Yes.
I just wonder if that's the first time that grey belt's been discussed or referred to in appeals that we've come across, or any other applications, because it's a very new development, isn't it, since the MPPF? Was that January, December?
Yes, the MPPF was December last year, and it is the first time that that issue has been considered in an appeal in Bristol. There are lots of other decisions that are coming out from across the country, but it was really interesting actually because that change happened kind of partway through the proceedings as well, so officers had to react to that. And I think on that note as well, I would just acknowledge the work that officers put into that as well, because inquiries can be quite intense processes, which often requires to commit a lot of resource as well. So.
Right, yeah. So let's put on record thanks to the officers who worked on that one, whoever they may be, we don't know, but yes, thank you very much. Anything else anyone has on appeals? Thank you for that update, Jonathan. No? Thank you very much. So let's move on to enforcement, and this is just to note recent enforcement notices. So does anyone have anything particularly they want to say? I have something, but yeah, go on, George. Can you just use your mic?
Looking at the numbers, it was quite difficult to gauge any improvement or how well we are actually doing, because there's no reference to previous years, or it would be nice to see maybe like the last 1 or 2 years in sets of data, so that you can like see how we're actually doing. That would be really, really good, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say, just to recognise that, I think we've probably brushed over that because we were waiting for our briefing on this a little bit. But I think actually there are some more things we could do to just improve this update, maybe like that. And also perhaps it is difficult to just look at numbers and not really understand any of the kind of underlying patterns. I don't know whether there's a way we can work on that so that we can flag if we think, oh, well, why is this the case? It's very difficult, I know, to present that in this very summary format. But yeah, I think that's maybe something to go away and look at, because we haven't quite got a grasp. I don't feel I've got a grasp currently of what this amounts to and what it means. And I think that's the key thing that we want from this update, is to just know. Obviously, we're seeing the scale of it, and we're seeing how many are being received, how many are validated, and how many are closed. But how do we actually improve as a local planning authority? At least from the perspective of the councillors, how do we then know that this is actually an improvement on something previous to now? So yeah, I'll leave that open-ended, but just something to think about for the officers, I think. Has anyone got anything else on planning enforcement that they'd like to say? No? Okay. So I think without further ado, we will move on to public forum for the first item, which is Flat 1 Knightstone Lodge, 6 to 8 Archfield Road. I believe we have one person to give their public forum statement, and that's Councillor Guy Pulteney. I would normally say take 1 minute, but I think you can have a little bit longer if you need to.
Thank you. Begging the chair's pardon, would you mind if I do it seated so I've got my notes in front of me? Sorry. Towering over the microphone is not the most comfortable way of doing it, if that's okay, if no one objects. Thanks ever so much. Yeah, so the case in front of you, Knightstone Lodge, was something residents approached me about some time ago, largely because they couldn't make contact with the applicant and they didn't understand why it was that the applicant seemed absolutely hell-bent on demolishing large sections of this wall, or maybe even the whole thing, unnecessarily. We have these walls stretching throughout this particular bit of my ward. As far as I can tell, this is the only time anyone's ever proposed demolishing one of them rather than simply repairing it, fixing it, repointing it. In fact, the thing the officer originally suggested doing in this case, we still have no explanation. I was kind of hoping that someone would be here tonight that we could actually talk to about this case, but I noticed that they've neither put in a statement nor is there anyone in attendance to speak for either the applicant or in favour of the development at all. What we do have is more than 40 objections across the two applications from local residents who, again, do not want this developer undertaking what is a massive piece of work affecting the retaining wall of a load of surrounding properties, when our policy very clearly states, under DM 31, that the applicant's required to demonstrate that the works proposed are the minimum required to secure the long-term use of the asset, the minimum required. And in this case, no alternative, including the one that anyone who has any responsibility for one of these walls at all uses, which is to fix it or to simply repoint it. We do not know why they want to do this in this impossibly disruptive way. And the argument counter to that this absolutely must be done because the wall is at risk of imminent collapse, is entirely based on a report that is now more than 3 years old. I popped down to the site myself this afternoon just to see how radically different it looked from when the report was written 3 years ago, to find it looks exactly as it looked 3 years ago, other than that the applicant, or the owner of the wall, I should say, has allowed a little bit more growth to take place and has put up some fencing around it. We don't know why they want to do this, but we would please urge you to refuse. If you don't feel that you can, just on the basis that the applicant has said in their application that they intend to serve notice on their neighbours of I think it's called party wall notice, which basically is to compel the neighbours to pay for some of this works on the grounds that it's a shared wall, that if you are saying this is the only way of doing this, and in other words, in effect, enforcing this on the people that live around it, that you please at least come out and look at it and make sure that you are certain that this is the only way of fixing it, because no one other than the applicant thinks it is. I urge you to refuse. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. That's helpful. I think it's over to you, Owen, for the officer presentation. Thank you.
Yes, okay, hello. So, yes, we've got the two applications, the listed and the full application, identical in the sort of works proposed. So, as you see, the description of development, proposed replacement and repair of boundary walls to the front and rear of the property. So, the property being Knightstone Lodge, as we see here. So, located in the Cottam and Redland Conservation Area. If you can see this map on the bottom right, we see a number of listed dwellings to the rear of the property. So this is 12, 14 and 16 Cottam Park. So this means that a portion of the rear boundary wall is curtilage listed. I've got a few more details on which bits coming up. So we've got the conservation area listed, and there's also a number of TPOs in sort of close proximity of the application site. Only one of these is sort of directly impacted by the proposal. We'll get into just what sort of extent in a second. There isn't particularly any relevant site history to go into here. This bottom one here is more so just the original application for the flats. So this is a mid-1970s infill into the wider sort of Victorian landscape. So the proposal itself is quite sort of self-explanatory in what is being proposed. So on the right-hand plan, which is the proposed site plan, it's the darker outlined sections which are to be rebuilt. So see the front section here, this is the retaining wall that is approximately 2.5 metres in height. And then we've got this longer boundary wall to the rear. Portions of this are curtilage listed. It's only at the rear where there's any sort of curtilage listing. These are random rubble stoneworks with brick capping at the top. Initial proposals had this sort of angled section to the western corner. This included as being sort of removed and rebuilt later on. This has been taken off the plan since because it was included as error initially. So this little bit of text you can actually see there is probably where the confusion has come from, because that section of the wall is being repointed. It's not being replaced at all. This is the location of the TPO, if you just for relevance. So why is this being proposed? So the structural inspection report, which has been presented to us, has led to the following two recommendations. So the top bullet point is referring to the front retaining walls. So you can see here that B and C, which are the two, I forget which way around, actively moving and at risk of partial collapse. Unpredictable, so can't put a time frame on when this will occur, and suggests that a full rebuild will be required. So the current sort of state of these walls, you see the bowing of both of these sections. There's bulging at lower levels. There's the one that's perpendicular to the road, this one in the top right here, has quite significant evidence of water egress on the way out. And that's, yeah, generally the signs of damage at the front. It is also worth noting that this corner here, which is sort of closer to the vehicular access, has been patched up in the past. There isn't any sort of reference or case history as to when this would have been. So there's efforts to patch it up, but it patently hasn't sort of resolved any of the issues, and in fact it's caused a bit of an angle at which is now sort of less predictable because we've got different sections of the same wall moving at different rates at different angles. So the rear section of the wall is much larger, but it's a bit more of a general sort of conclusion here. Again, at risk of collapse, when and where this will occur cannot be accurately predicted, and likely to require rebuilding on new foundations. So the areas of damage on the rear boundary wall are located in 3 sections generally. So this is the TPO, which I can get back up on a plan in a second if you like. You can see sort of a pretty significant top to bottom crack running down the left-hand side as you're... Yeah, I still see the bottom right.
I think,
yeah.
I'm not sure your cursor's showing up on the...
Oh, is it not? Sorry. The bottom right-hand picture, you see the TPO tree there. Yeah, so the cracks, they don't show up brilliantly on photos. I have been to the site. I went in, I think it was January. But there's a pretty large crack, so the wall behind the tree has leaned. I haven't got the exact measurements, of 10-15 centimetres pushing back towards Poppy Lane. And on the other side of the tree, there's diagonal cracks coming out from the roots, which are thinner. They don't show up as much on pictures, but they are emanating from the cracks. The tree being the source of this damage, as put in the structural report. Further damage to the rear boundary wall. So the top right-hand picture is the right-hand corner. It's a bit annoying that I can't use the cursor. So top to bottom crack is probably a bit more dramatic in real life as opposed to on a picture. You can see daylight through it. And then sort of continuing round that curved section towards 14 and 12 Cotton Park, which is where you see this sort of more sort of collapsed general stone pile as opposed to what the wall ideally should be. So that is the proposed justification. As I mentioned, portions of the rear wall are curtilage listed. So it's the red sections on the site plan there. So the one furthest to the rear, this was resulting from the subdivision in the 1950s. The longer run, which is includes the sort of the long straight run included in the proposal, is a sort of, we believe, a 1970s rebuild of an existing wall, which isn't curtilage listed as was previously thought. So with regards to neighbouring comments, they generally, there was a number of comments which weren't relevant to the planning process in this decision. So party wall disputes we don't consider as part of this. Cost, and I'm aware that a number of neighbours commented on communication with the agent. I think corporate bullying was a phrase used, but that's not something that is taken any weight in this decision. So, broad themes of neighbouring comments being the justification of the works, whether or not works are required in the first place, whether or not the works go too far beyond what could be needed, whether a repair would be more suitable, and things of that like. Impact on heritage, so on the listed assets on the conservation area, and then also on the TPO and wider natural sort of landscape. So 3 sort of points for each of these themes. So with regards to the structural justification, so the initial application did not include the structural report. Initial comments were made without this and was later provided, and hopefully sort of provided some sort of clarity throughout this process now. It's worth noting as well that all officers that have been consulted as part of this are in agreement that the works are justified. With regards to heritage, the initial application did face an objection from the conservation officer because we had no listed application, which is a requirement with listed assets being involved. We had no heritage statement, which is also a requirement. And there was also proposed works to someone I've got a picture of later, so a more significant heritage asset without necessary sort of justification or discussion or appreciation. We've since had all of those reports submitted. We've had the associated application, and we've also had that portion removed from the plans, which has led to the conclusion in the heritage statement and further comments from the conservation officer that no harm is proposed. So mitigation for harm, as noted in policy DM31, is not relevant in this case because it is mitigating from no harm, so it's not possible to do. Conditions have been agreed with the agent and the applicant and the conservation officer, detailing the reuse of as much of the existing stone as possible. So the categorizing of the stone which is currently in place, and the reuse, the storage, to maximise the continuity between what exists now and what will exist in the future. With regards to nature, the initial arboricultural report had expired. So these are valid for 12 months only, and had sort of only sort of just expired. I think it had been prepared for the permitted development application. This has since been updated, resubmitted, and the arboricultural officer, the council's arboricultural officer, has provided no objection, subject to conditions. This is the same with the nature conservation officer as well. So the existing walls are to be removed by hand, and the works to reconstruct are also to be done by hand with selected stone in accordance with the natural and the heritage conditions to be applied. The nature conservation officer also concluded that there wouldn't be any harm to protected species, habitats, and has applied an extra section to the construction management plan, which is conditioned with the arboricultural stuff, to basically set up almost like a tripwire like we'd see with contaminated land. So if a protected species is to be found, then there's sort of a halt put on proceedings until sort of more informed decisions can take place. So yeah, as a roundup, no officers have now objected to the proposal. All officers are in support of the proposal, subject to conditions. And yeah, I've got a few more pictures if people would like to go through that, but I'm happy for. Yeah.
I think let's use the pictures in a minute if we need them. Thanks. So I just want to say for clarity that obviously we're deciding on 2 applications, but we are discussing them both together, and then we'll make separate decisions at the end on both the full planning application and the listed building application, if that's clear. Does anyone have any questions about this? Fabian and then Al.
Yeah, just concerning the last picture on the slide deck, which we didn't get to, it looks like some kind of tower type effect. I was just wondering where that is on the site.
Yep. On the western, on the western side here, you see 16 Cotton Park, that sort of corner, the junction between walls U and V. See a sort of circle?
This is on slide 3.
Yeah.
Where it says proposal at the top. And there's a little round circle, sort of at the boundary at the western edge.
Yeah, bottom left. Yeah. So that was initially included in the initial proposal as error and has now been removed. So when the conservation officer originally made comments objecting, it was to that specifically. Not being touched.
Al, go ahead.
So yeah, I wanted to ask, why do they want to knock the whole thing down rather than fixing the existing pool? Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, so in the structural assessment, there are recommendations to rebuild, including foundations for the rear, and then a full rebuild from the front. For the front one as well, there's evidence that they have patched this up previously, which hasn't sort of fixed the structural integrity of the wall. We've also run this by Council's building control, who have commented that any sort of repairs to a retaining wall are generally temporary, and they delay a rebuild as opposed to removing the need for one, basically.
Okay. I've got a quick question, which is to do with actually it's to do with Councillor Bonney's statement and bringing up the policy DM31. Can you just expand on that, because that seems to be one of the ways that you might come to reject a scheme like this, that you have to demonstrate that the works proposed are the minimum required to secure the long-term use of the asset. Does this strike you as being the minimum required, or is there something else?
Yes, so without the text of the policy in front of me, I'm sort of flying a bit blind on that. But yeah, so reasonable effort's been made to mitigate the extent of harm to the significance of the asset, and so it's in the conclusion of the heritage statement, and agreed with the council's conservation officer that no harm is resulting from the proposal. So there is nothing to mitigate. There is the planning balance with regards to public safety, which we would ordinarily weigh against sort of a minimal change, less than significant, we would generally put as needing clear and convincing justification to do the works. In this case, the level of harm does not meet less than significant, it is 0, but we still are of the opinion that clear and convincing justification has been given, so in effect, officers are of the opinion that it's essentially reached a higher threshold for justification than is required.
Thanks. The same sort of applies with the other policy brought up, which is from the emerging local plan, which is that alterations, extensions or changes of use to listed buildings or development in their vicinity will be expected to have no adverse impact on those elements. So you're saying there's no adverse impact?
I am, yes, and that is what Conservation Officer and Heritage Statement has said.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Al, yes, again.
Yes. So what's what's the estimated time frame for these works, and how will disruptions to nearby residents in terms of noise, dust, access, and traffic be managed?
Yeah, so with regards to the time frame for works, that's not something that we can particularly control outside of the 3 years to begin works, which is conditioned on every application of this type. So with the disruption coming from works, so we have with the nature and arboricultural comments, conditioned a construction management plan. So this will be a pre-commencement plan which is sent into the council for approval with the relevant officers. But we've already agreed certain details. So the removal of the wall by hand, the protection of the tree roots, which will involve sort of more sensitive uses of sort of dust or cement or heavy machinery which isn't proposed to be used. Generally, the area anyway is a pretty large tarmac car park. There's plenty of space around there. Also balancing off the fact that that rear wall is currently fenced off as well. So there's already limited access to the rear, and has been for 3 years, both front and rear. And then yeah, to the rear of this is just another access lane. So it's not significant disruption to be expected.
Okay, any more questions? And we'll move on to debate. Yep, Ali.
Sorry, really quick one. Given that planning applications, the permission runs out after 3 years, and the survey report was 3 years old, it feels slightly out of sync that we're not asking for a new structural survey, given that when we give permission, we say that it runs out after 3 years, presumably because things change in 3 years. So can you just clarify why we've not asked for a more up-to-date structural survey?
Yeah, so we would generally ask that, like you mentioned, with changing circumstances, changes to built environment, to the context of the works. But fundamentally, the structural state of the wall won't have changed in that time. If anything, is a steady state of regression. The wall isn't going to get in better condition without works, essentially. Like the report said, it's very difficult to predict how that wall progresses over time. Whether the wall collapses in short, long term, it's difficult to tell. All you can work with is the evidence that you've got. But yes, there's no reason to believe that that's changed in the interim, whereas the decision is more of locked to sort of protect future development.
Okay, I think this is going to be the last question, okay? And then we'll move on. Yeah.
So, I mentioned that the neighbours might have to pay towards the wall. How does that work out? And who is responsible? And who is responsible for the financing of the wall, and how much will the neighbours actually have to pay or contribute?
Yeah, so that's something that's taken under the party wall process, which is separate legislation from this decision. So it's not something that's that could affect this decision, really. So, and with regards to cost and how that's sort of borne, that's not really a reason that we could refuse or determine this case.
Okay, I'd like to move on to debate, if that's okay. Is it a really important question?
Really, for my own clarification, I'm so sorry if I misheard or misunderstood. Can I just confirm that the materials are being reused in the rebuilding of the wall?
Yeah, so the condition that we've got is, you can see the full text in the report, but it's detailing the which stones are to be reused, suitable storage of these during that process of the rebuilding. So it's reuse of as much of the original stone as is possible.
Okay, moving on to debate. Has anyone anything they want to say about this application? Sorry, these two applications. No. Literally nothing anyone wants to say. Go on then, George.
I was hoping a little bit more time to formulate the question or discussion, but I guess I feel uneasy about this because the report was 3 years ago for the structural report, and yet, I mean, the wall still stands. So, I guess my real question, what I'm thinking is, I guess just going off what Ellie said earlier, is it's a shame there wasn't a new report done, because actually we are kind of determining whether or not the wall can or cannot be rebuilt, because if it can be rebuilt, then it should never be taken down in the first place. No, is that correct?
Who are you asking? Because we've moved on from questions now. But
sorry,
are you right to just have answer one more question on that, or is that?
Yeah.
So I guess my question would be, the determination of demolishing the wall and rebuilding it is off the basis that it cannot be repaired, right? Or can it be repaired? Because if it can be repaired, then I don't know why we're yeah.
I'll just come to response, then I'll come to you.
I think, in summary, our expectation is that the situation certainly wouldn't have improved since that time in terms of the structural integrity of the wall. And I think that we are satisfied, based on the report that's been submitted, that was prepared sort of at that time, that there is sort of justification there to support this.
Okay. All right. Let's just put a quick line there. So that's the end of questions now. So debate. So, right. Did you have something to say, Don? Or do you want to...
Well, just say roughly what Jonathan said, really, is that the fact that it was 3 years old, the structural survey, none of us would expect that the condition would have improved over the past 3 years. It's not a broken leg or anything. It's a falling down wall. So that seems a very fallacious point. Really.
Okay. Any other comments on this application? Okay. Fabian, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I mean, I'm inclined to go with the officer recommendation, because they've, if I'm assuming you've been to have a look at it yourself. Okay. So, officers have sort of, given a reasoned opinion on it. And I know from postponing repairs to a roof and then having to replace the whole roof in any case, sometimes patching things up doesn't actually do the job, and something like this, a retaining wall, it's got to be, patching it up is just going to postpone the inevitable, so we're going to be back here again, so you may as well get it fixed and done properly. I'm going through the conditions. Did we cover about standards, making sure that the building regs, any building standards are complied with, so it's a decent job? We obviously don't want to go through all the hassle of it and then find it's been botched and doesn't last anyway. So they've got to do it properly. So have we got controls? Will we have controls in place to make sure the job is done to a decent standard?
You've asked another question there, Fabian. We're not in the question section.
Yeah, I know.
We've had the question section. I
All
don't
right,
want to keep going back
right.
to the case officer, if that's all right.
But yeah, I'm happy to go with the officer recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yeah, sorry, you had one out.
Yeah, I was quite concerned about the faulty objections and guys like comments, but the officers have answered all of my questions, and it seems there's like no clear reason to object. So yeah, yeah, I'm inclined to go with the officer recommendations. Thanks.
Okay, Serena.
I'm concerned at the state of the wall I can see in those images, having had a situation in my own garden where a wall almost collapsed on one of my children because the neighbour hadn't maintained it. I will always go with the safety option. So also construction expert I am not. So I'd go with the officer's advice on this one. Plus I am heartened to hear they're reusing the materials where they can. No, it's not ideal, but I think it's ideal than it collapsing on somebody. That's what I'd worry about.
Okay, any other comments before we move to the motion? Okay, I'm going to move the motion in accordance with the officer's recommendation on the first application. Do I need to read out that's the full application? So I have got a random order of councillors here, so if you just say whether you...
Second it.
Oh, sorry, who would like to second it?
I'll second it.
My apologies. Thank you, so that was Fabian, I think, wasn't it? So I've got a random order, as I do in this committee, as some of you know. So I'll just go around and just say if you're in favour of that or against or abstaining. So first of all, Councillor Classic.
4.
Councillor Ralston.
4.
Councillor Almagrabi.
4.
Councillor Calcioni.
4.
Councillor Alexander. Councillor Udden isn't here. Councillor Freeman.
I'm going to do what I said I'd never do and abstain.
Councillor Breyer, that's me, I'm 4. Councillor Breckles. Okay, that was 4, I don't think you... Was it on?
4.
Okay, thank you. Great. So that has passed, and then we'll just go on to the listed building application now. I'm going to just randomise again. So, sorry? Councillor Alexander.
Can you just make sure you move to second it?
Oh, sorry, I need a seconder for that, for moving the second one. Thanks, Al. So that's Al, Councillor Almagrabi. Sorry, he's just done it. Okay, thank you. Councillor Alexander's 4. Councillor Classic.
4.
Councillor Breyer, that's me, 4. Councillor Udden, he's not here. Councillor Ralston.
4.
Councillor Almagrabi.
4.
Councillor Breckles.
4.
Councillor Calcioni.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, so the first vote was around the full application. The second one is about the listed building consent. We just take...
4.
Okay. Councillor Freeman.
I'm going to be consistent and abstain.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Freeman. So that passes as well. We're going to take a 5-minute break and then come back at 6:48, please.
Oh, I did that at speed.
welcome back to the Development Control A Committee. Hopefully we're now recording again, if we weren't already. We are now moving on to the next item today, which is 9B, which is 1 Broadleys or Broadleys Avenue. I never know which way to say that. Broadleys, thank you. Or Leeds? You say? Whatever it is. Maybe you can tell us that in your public forum statement. Anyway, we're going over to Councillor Caroline Gooch. She's come to give public forum. We think we've only got one statement, so you can take a little bit of extra time if you need it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I call it Broadleys, but I have canvassed around there and they all say Broadleys, but okay. This is the end of one of 2 terraces in this style. It's white stucco ground floor with pillars giving the appearance of a colonnade, and with a brick upstory and hip roof. But there's not only these 2 blocks, there's also individual brick detached homes, with a pillared portico and several terraces of 2-storey white stucco houses with Palladian front door surrounds. So the whole development is about 50 homes, all with Palladian features. So the fact is that this one does stand out now as being incongruous because it doesn't have any of those Palladian features other than the bow window at the front. The photos you've got in the briefing actually not taken from the best aspect, from the garages. So that I'd suggest you have a little look on Google Maps and just while you're having the discussion and walk around with the little man on Google Maps to get a feel of it, because it is a very pretty little development. This building actually sits right on the edge of it and is really sort of incongruous. You can see it very obviously from Southmead Road. It doesn't blend in because it's just a plain cube, basically. The frontage could be improved by carrying on the colonnade scheme on the front, adding stucco and a pillar in line with the rest of the terrace, and the hip roof. This is the only building in the entire development now with a flat roof. It just sits very, very obviously being different. I'm sure this design would not have gained permission if it had been put forward as a brand new development. In fact, there was one 3 years ago that got knocked back. So what we've got is a now development by degrees of build a ground floor, add to it, build something else. It was always the intention to build a 2-storey development. When they built it, they put in separate services and everything. So it just seems like this is a way to get around having the first one knocked back. The problem is we've ended up with something that's even worse than if we'd worked through the development in the first place to get something that was approvable. And it's problem is I think it sets a bit of a precedence that if you do development piecemeal and just build what you want, no matter what's in the plans, you'll eventually get approval, which is a bad precedent to set, I feel. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. So let's go over to Is it Donya? Donya. Yeah. Officer presentation. Thank you.
Okay, we have a full planning application for number 1 Broadleys Avenue, I think. So the description is converting a large dwelling house to 2 smaller dwelling houses, which is a retrospective application. And the reason for referral is the application was referred to committee by former councillors, and now officers have, however, liaised with the current board members, and especially Councillor Gooch has raised some concerns after the call-in deadline, especially about concerns about the development haven't built with like the existing terrace. It's not aligning with the roof design and building line. And there was another concern about a similar case in the past that was refused, number 20 and number 30 Hop House Close, which is nearby. We received 3 letters of objections from the neighborhood and they were mainly about extra noise pollution, parking issues, and inconsistent architectural features, lack of symmetry. So the site relates to an extension adjacent to number 1 Broadleys Avenue, which is a 2-story end-of-terrace dwelling at the junction of Broadleys Avenue and South Mead Road. The dwelling is faced in brick with a flat roof and a large porch, as you can see in the picture, with hip roof, the porch. The windows are white UPVC, and all other 6 dwellings within the terrace are uniform in appearance in regard to material, bay windows, and other design features. The site is not in conservation area as well. Well, the history tells everything. So in 2005, we had the erection of single-story side extension, which was granted, and later on in 2021, they added the first floor to the side extension with a 3-meter rear extension as well, which was granted to. Later, we had an enforcement case for a building that converted to a dwelling house. The case was closed as we recommended to enforcement team that we are recommending approval. So this is a site plan. As you can see, this one, number 1, and having parking, bins, and number 1A at the side, having cycle storage, bins, parking, and the main entrance is here, and the tall hedge over there, and still enough room for pedestrians. And this is the existing and proposed block plan. And this one is existing and proposed floor plans. And the elevations.
Just to explain to those at home, Councillor Eden has arrived at the committee, but unfortunately you're not able to sit on this item because the public forum has already been taken. So you can listen, but you won't be able to vote. So it's up to you what you want to do with that. I'm really sorry, but as you have turned up late, that's what's happened. That's okay. Oh, no. Sorry to that. Okay, so up to you what you want to do, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but yes, just wanted to make that clear.
Okay. We have consulted with city design team and transport development management team. There was no objection from them, and they just asked for more information that was submitted later. Design team actually considered the development and the proposal as acceptable, as it extends the existing terrace and maintaining consistency with the character of the street scene, and it also mirrors the size and the designs of the existing terrace porch, and also doesn't occupy the entire corner plot and leaving a gap between the dwelling and a pavement boundary. So following Councillor Gooch concerns about roofline, we had another consultation with design team, and they again had no objection about the design, and they said that the design is not in conformity with the consented scheme as it was approved in 2021, but it doesn't pose a adverse impact on the character of the area and is acceptable from design perspective. With amenity of neighboring occupiers, well, there is no any potential overlooking from any windows, ground floor or first floor, because of the oblique angles and because of the similar relationship between the windows and the other rest of terrace. And there's no concern about increased noise pollution because there's a family living there. And also amenity of future occupiers. Well, in accordance with the policy BCS 18 and national space standards, it is more than 70 square meter. It is about 83 square meter, which is completely fine with the minimum gross internal floor area, and it also provides natural light and outlook and ventilation to the future occupiers. Officers are recommending approval as it has a sustainable location for residential development, and as we assessed it against the policy in NPPF, especially paragraph 11, tilted balance, I would say it is, provision of additional unit of accommodation outweighs any other adverse impact. And also, we haven't received any objection from design team, so it is consistent with the existing terrace, and there is no residential amenity, and also it provides safe car parking and cycle storage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions about this one? Yep. Oh, I'll go Serena, then Sarah, then Al. Is that all right?
Just a quick question about the proposed new elevation. I couldn't really see much difference actually between the existing and the proposed, but I might not have been looking properly. Is there any way you can just flag that up? Sorry.
Because it's already been built, so
Right.
the existing
Yeah. But previously, what did it look like previously?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I meant.
Good question.
I only see one. And sorry, I didn't phrase that very elegantly. It's been a long day.
Okay.
Bus frustration.
See, as you can see, the dual pitch roof continues to the side elevation here at the top. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. And the below elevation, as you can see, is just a flat roof. So we don't have that design feature of the pitch roof. And we're having a flat roof at the existing, the current situation.
Right. Shared front door, shared.
They're not having a shared entrance. Oh, this one.
Okay. I'm going to go to the next questions, and then if we need to come back to something, we will. Sarah, and then Al.
Thank you. Have the developers offered any explanation for why the discrepancy in the roof in terms of the proposed and then the flat roof that's been built?
Explanation for building it like that? No.
There is, I think, a note on the drawing which cites a reason due to the insurance policy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to read, but if you zoom in, I think they have kind of cited that as a reason.
Yeah, due to the insurance policy for the roof of the whole block, it is
Interesting.
required not to change or remove any of the building above the existing roof, membrane, tile, roof, structure. So if they wanted to continue that pitch roof, they had to remove the tiles of that previous pitch roof.
Okay. Al, go on.
I just noticed there's only one parking one parking space for both homes. How will this affect? Oh, right. There's one each. Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah, this is the existing parking bay for
All right,
1A.
yeah, one each. That's fine.
Okay, any more questions on this?
No.
Okay, should we move on to the debate? Anyone got anything they want to say about this? Yep, Fabian, go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's. I don't see the point in refusing it. I do. I mean, the design's a tad unusual. You got the staircase in the kitchen. You've got an unfeasibly large porch. But I think one thing I do think we could require. I think we should ask for is for the stucco to be extended, the ground floor stucco to be continued onto the front, because I think at the moment you've got this row of houses with a nice white rendered stucco and pillars, and okay, so this is recessed, so it's level with the ground floor, so the upstairs is recessed. But if they put the white stucco on the ground floor, it would blend in more. I think it'd improve the look of the building. I think that's all that we need to ask them to do, apart from the existing conditions.
I think you're asking them to redesign what they've submitted by saying
No,
that.
it's just render the bottom bit.
Is that something? Okay, so the question is that something we can condition? I'm pretty sure that we can't, but go on.
Yeah, I mean, I believe, we would sort of be into the realms there of essentially seeking them to redesign, the proposal. That isn't something that is before us to consider, and I think my advice would be that there is just a need to determine what's before us.
Don.
Yeah, I mean, the flat roof is, from a technical point of view, not the best idea. I think they could have invested a little bit more and kept the water off of it, but I have no objection.
Okay, any other comments on this application? No, I think I'm going to move the recommendation then, in accordance with the recommendation, which is to approve this application. Could I have a seconder? Quick. That was Al, who's seconding. So again, we'll go just round in a random order. As I said earlier, Badal, we can't allow you to vote, unfortunately. So Councillor, so it's for, against, or abstain. Councillor Ralston's first.
For.
Councillor Classic.
For.
Councillor Breyer, that's me. For. Councillor Breckles.
For.
Councillor Al-Maghrabi.
For.
Councillor Kalshoni.
For.
Councillor Freeman is no longer with us. And, sorry, that sounds terrible. Councillor Freeman has left the meeting, sorry. Councillor Alexander.
For.
Right, that passes unanimously. And I think that concludes today's meeting. The date of the next meeting is the annual general meeting, which is in May, and 21st of May. Thank you, Lauren.